This week's home learning is going to be based on a really famous British artist called Barbara Hepworth. And she is a sculpture artist, which means to create three-dimensional art. Now, this three-dimensional art, I'm just going to move my camera because it's wobbling. Three-dimensional art is a piece of artwork that you could normally touch, or you can feel, or that you can look at and want to ask a question about it. That is what's so amazing about sculpture, is that you always want to go up to it, have a look at it, and be involved in what it actually means. Now, Barbara Hepworth, I'm going to read you the back so you know a little bit more about her, but make sure you check out the blog for more information on her. Meet Barbara Hepworth, the 20th century British artist who found a way to capture entire worlds in her bold sculptures. Barbara Hepworth loved shape and textures, two of our elements of art, and she saw in the countryside and carved them into wood and stone for other people to see, touch, and to walk around. Some of her sculptures look really familiar, like hills or people, and some that you might need to use your imagination to decide what they might be. Remembering art is about what you want it to be and what you think it looks like. So, may I start? What can you see? Can you see Flint? No. And Mrs. Sycamore? Look at the lovely textures on the collage. These sculptures are in the landscape. So she makes sculptures that are involved in the landscape, taking that as her inspiration. How about now? Whatever are they talking about? It looks pretty serious. So these are her two sculptures, and they do kind of look a little bit like two people are talking. From the age of 7, Barbara Hepworth saw the landscape, made up forms and textures. There's our elements of art again. She saw the hills as shapes, sculptures for her to make. Because she looked at the hills and the mountains around her for inspiration, Barbara's shapes are round and solid. Remember these words, because when we ask you to make your sculpture, you're going to need to use her as your inspiration. You can walk around them. Nice soft curves and lines. What do you think this looks like? And notice how the light falls on them. So here we can talk about value and think about when the moon is shining, what that must look like, what that sculpture looks like. See some little eyes down there. Lots of people find the shapes that Barbara made calming, whether or not they see a bird or a person in the landscape. This makes sense because Barbara's love was for nature, people, and for making. You can see here in the illustration that there's a lot of texture. What materials do you think she uses to make her sculptures from? Barbara's figures started to talk to one another. Now, of course, they don't, but they kind of do. Then they started talking to everyone around them. Depending on the space they're in, people move around the sculptures differently. There's a lovely page here. I've actually been to Barbara Hepworth's house in Cornwall, and her sculptures are displayed in her garden near her studio where she used to make them. And you can climb inside, you can look through the holes that she creates, and you can touch them and feel them. So when you're looking through the hole, you can see a little piece of landscape behind, a tree or a bird. A really, really famous sculpture that's actually in the high street. Barbara used lots of different materials to make her sculptures, like stone and marble, wood and bronze. Aha, there we go. Can you find something to make your own sculpture with? Now this is where your task is going to come in. These materials are hard, soft, rough or smooth. Are they man-made or from nature? Have a think. Like Hepworth, can you look around you for inspiration? your home. You can look inside for inspiration. You can look out into the window. If I popped upstairs to the staff room, I could see the sea. I can see our lovely mountains. I could see boats. That might inspire me for my sculpture. Think about your sculpture and how it looks from different angles. That's really important. So when you're making your sculpture, make sure that it doesn't have a front or a back. Make sure that it works from all angles. So, what can you see now? What do you mean you can just see a rock? Look closer. What do you see? And closer still. What do you imagine is going on inside? Who lives there? What are they having for tea? Some people just see a hole, but for Barbara, the hole was a window into another world. Who knows what you might see? You can have a completely different world, whatever world you want. So that's the end of our book. Make sure you check out your blog for all the instructions on your next task. Enjoy!